Why do women seem emotionally complex to most men? The answer isn't as confusing as it seems, if you understand nature, reason, and your own expectations. A lot of the confusion men feel doesn't come from women themselves, but from a lack of awareness about how emotions work, how people differ, and how we choose to respond. When something seems complicated, it often just means we haven't taken the time to look at it through the right lens. The Stoics taught that the world isn't as chaotic as it looks. It only feels that way when we try to control things we can't or expect life to play by our rules. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Whenever you are about to find fault with someone, ask yourself the following question: what fault of mine most nearly resembles the one I am about to criticize?" This idea flips the usual reaction. Instead of rushing to blame or label someone else's behavior as irrational, it invites us to look inward first. In this video, we're not going to give you some shallow trick to handle emotions or fake your way through conversations. That's not Stoicism. What we will explore is how Stoic thinking gives you the tools to remain calm, clear, and composed, even when things feel emotionally intense. We'll talk about why emotions are part of nature, how women often express them differently than men, and why trying to fix or suppress them only causes more damage. This isn't about control. It's about understanding, about learning to face emotional moments with strength instead of resistance. If you've ever felt lost or overwhelmed, trying to understand the emotional world of a woman, you're not alone. But with the right mindset and a few powerful lessons from the Stoics, you can walk through that maze with clarity and self-mastery. So once we begin to understand that emotional moments don't have to be battles, the next step is learning how to see them more clearly. The Stoics taught that what troubles us isn't the events themselves, but the way we judge those events. Epictetus put it simply, it's not things that upset us, but our judgments about them. This means that when a woman is upset, angry, or suddenly distant, the problem isn't necessarily her emotion. It's how we choose to see it. Most men don't react to the actual emotion. They react to what they think it means. Maybe they assume it's their fault. Maybe they take it as disrespect. Or maybe they think she's being unreasonable. But that's not reality. That's a personal interpretation. And often it's wrong. Let's say a woman gets frustrated after a long day and snaps in conversation. A common reaction might be to feel attacked, to snap back, or to shut down emotionally. But what if, instead of reacting, we simply observed? What if we understood that her emotion might just be the natural release of stress, not a statement about us, not a criticism, not a fight? That shift in perception changes everything. You go from being defensive to being grounded, from feeling confused to being composed. And most importantly, you stop feeding a fire that never needed to burn in the first place. A lot of unnecessary conflict between men and women comes from this kind of misjudgment. We assume too quickly. We take things personally. We forget that other people are dealing with their own thoughts, feelings, and struggles, just like we are. Stoicism reminds us that we don't need to control what someone else feels, but we can control how we interpret it. That control of our own mind, our own reaction, is where real strength lives. Emotional neutrality doesn't mean you don't care. It means you don't let emotions, yours or someone else's, decide your behavior. You stay steady. You stay centered. When you observe first instead of reacting, you give yourself the space to understand what's actually happening. And in that space, you gain clarity. This isn't about pretending to be emotionless. It's about choosing peace over pride, understanding over ego. Women aren't puzzles to be solved or problems to be fixed. They're human, like you, experiencing the world in their own way. When you stop trying to label every emotion and instead choose to see it for what it is, you step out of confusion and into calm. That's what Stoicism gives you. Not control over others, but control over yourself. So when we start seeing emotions for what they truly are, signals, not threats, we begin to realize something else that's often misunderstood, especially by men trying to live with a Stoic mindset. Many people think that showing emotion is the same as being weak or irrational, but that's not what Stoicism teaches at all. In fact, that's a distortion. The Stoics never said emotions were the enemy. They said letting emotions rule you was. There's a big difference. Just because someone expresses what they feel doesn't mean they're out of control. And just because someone keeps it all inside doesn't mean they're wise. Women, in general, might express their emotions more openly, but that doesn't mean they're any less reasonable or thoughtful. Expression is just one way of processing what's going on inside. Seneca, one of the great Stoic minds, once wrote that emotions are natural. We all feel them. What matters, he said, is how we deal with them. Do we let them sweep us away? Or do we feel them fully, understand them, and then choose our next step with calm and clarity? Think about it like this. Emotions are like notifications on your phone. They pop up, they alert you, they tell you something important might be happening. But they're not commands. You don't have to act on them right away. You don't have to panic. You simply read them, take in what they're telling you, and decide what to do. That's what Stoicism is all about. It's not about ignoring emotion, but responding with intention instead of impulse. When you're around someone who expresses their emotions freely, the goal isn't to silence them or fix them. It's to observe without rushing to label or judge. That's where true Stoic calm comes from. You don't get pulled into every storm. You stand steady and listen. You understand that emotional expression doesn't mean someone is out of control. It means they're human. And often they just want to be seen, heard, or understood. Not everything is a crisis. Not everything needs a solution. Sometimes, presence is more powerful than words. When you let go of judgment and choose to see emotions as information, not threats, you begin to live with real peace. Once we start seeing emotions as information instead of threats, it becomes easier to understand why they sometimes change so quickly or feel intense, especially when it comes to women. And here's where biology plays a role. It's not a judgment, and it's definitely not an excuse, it's just reality. A woman's emotional rhythm is often influenced by her body's natural cycles. Hormones like estrogen and progesterone shift throughout the month, and those shifts can affect mood, energy, and sensitivity. Just like how we get tired when we don't sleep or irritated when we're hungry, these changes are a part of how the body communicates. They're signals, not faults. Now, a Stoic doesn't hear this and roll their eyes or get defensive. A Stoic leans into understanding. If something is natural, then it's not surprising. If it's expected, it's not frustrating. The Stoics believed in preparing the mind for the nature of things, not just what we like about nature, but all of it. Marcus Aurelius wrote that we should welcome whatever comes, like a stone accepts the wind or a tree bends to the rain. The wise person doesn't complain that the sea has waves. They learn how to sail. So instead of reacting to emotional ups and downs with irritation or confusion, we respond with calm and readiness. We remind ourselves that just like weather, changes from sunny to cloudy to stormy and back again, emotional states move through phases. No one blames the sky for a storm, and no one expects it to stay perfect all the time. In the same way, women, like all of us, have inner weather. The goal is not to control it, but to understand it and adjust with patience. This shift in thinking can change everything. It stops you from taking things personally when a woman seems distant one day and warm the next. It helps you listen better, speak less, and trust that emotions, however strong, are not permanent. They move, they pass. And if you're steady, like the Stoic lighthouse standing in the storm, you won't get swept away. You'll just keep showing up with grace. The mistake most people make is expecting reality to match their preference. But the Stoic knows better. The Stoic knows peace comes from accepting what is instead of demanding what should be. And when you meet emotional flux with understanding instead of resistance, something powerful happens. You grow stronger, steadier, and more connected. You stop trying to fix or fight what's natural, and you start learning how to flow with it. Understanding the natural rhythm of emotion helps us stay steady. But there's another challenge many men face, especially in relationships. It's the urge to fix things. When a woman is upset, frustrated, or simply venting, the automatic response for a lot of men is to jump in with a solution. Here's what you should do. Just stop thinking about it. It's not that big of a deal. But here's the truth. Most of the time, she's not asking for an answer. She's asking to be heard. This difference in how we deal with emotions often creates confusion. A man sees a problem and feels responsible to fix it. But to her, talking about it isn't necessarily a request for repair. It's a way of connecting, expressing, and processing. When we jump in with advice, we often interrupt what she really needs: presence, attention, and empathy. And that's where Stoicism quietly teaches us something powerful. Epictetus said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." In moments of emotional tension, that's exactly the kind of mindset that makes all the difference. Instead of rushing in with advice, the Stoic man remains calm. He listens. He creates space. Because listening, not fixing, is often the strongest, most supportive thing you can do. This doesn't mean you never offer help or speak your mind. It means you wait until it's asked for. You let her complete the thought, feel her feelings, and come to her own conclusions. Strength isn't always about action. Sometimes strength looks like stillness, like being a solid ground when everything else feels shaky. Like saying nothing, not because you have nothing to say, but because your silence is filled with attention, patience, and understanding. The urge to fix is natural, but wisdom lies in knowing when and how to act. Stoicism teaches us that our role is not to control others, but to control ourselves. And often what's needed most is not the solution, but your calm presence. When you give that without rushing to fix or correct, you create trust. You show that you're not just there to solve problems, you're there to truly understand. And that's something far more valuable. When you stop trying to fix and start truly listening, something else quietly starts to grow inside you: emotional intelligence. And this isn't just some modern buzzword. It's actually a deep Stoic strength, a kind of wisdom that lets you stay calm in the middle of emotional storms, whether they're yours or someone else's. Emotional intelligence means being able to recognize what's happening inside, give it a name, and hold space for it without needing to push it away or react to it. And just like Stoicism teaches, it's not about denying emotions. It's about not being ruled by them. The Stoics taught us to control what's within and understand what's outside. That's exactly what emotional intelligence helps us do. It allows you to say, "I'm feeling frustrated," or "she's overwhelmed right now," without letting those feelings take over your actions. Marcus Aurelius put it beautifully. Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself. That doesn't mean being harsh, it means being disciplined enough to stay grounded while offering others patience, especially when emotions are high. This kind of strength is often misunderstood. Some think being masculine means being tough, silent, or emotionally distant. But true masculinity, Stoic masculinity, is about emotional composure. It's being the calm in someone else's chaos. It's holding the line when things feel uncertain, not by ignoring emotion, but by understanding it and not letting it control your actions. That kind of presence doesn't just help others feel safe, it helps you stay in control of your own peace. Imagine your partner comes home after a long, stressful day. She's clearly frustrated, maybe even snappy. In that moment, you have two choices. You can take it personally, get defensive, and let it turn into an argument. Or you can pause. You can remind yourself, her mood isn't about you. You stay calm, you listen. Maybe you offer a quiet nod, a simple, "Want to talk about?" Or maybe you just sit next to her without a word, letting her know you're there. That's a Stoic response, not cold, but centered. Not reactive, but aware. You're not avoiding emotion. You're making space for it without letting it shake your foundation. Emotional intelligence gives you that power. It's not loud. It doesn't look flashy. But it's strong. Stronger than most realize. Because it takes real discipline to stay calm when others aren't, and real wisdom to understand that most emotional storms pass faster when they're met with stillness, not force. Emotional intelligence doesn't mean accepting everything without question. Just because you understand where someone's coming from doesn't mean you have to go along with it. That's where boundaries come in, and they are a crucial part of a Stoic life. A Stoic doesn't allow himself to be pushed around by other people's emotions, but he also doesn't shut down or act harshly. He responds with calm strength, with compassion that has discipline behind it. Stoicism is often misunderstood as being cold or distant, but that couldn't be further from the truth. True Stoicism is about being present, kind, and fair, without losing yourself in someone else's storm. It's the ability to say, "I care about what you're going through, but I will not let it control me or lead me to act in ways that go against my values." That's not weakness. That's wisdom. It's the middle ground between empathy and enmeshment. Empathy means you feel with someone. Enmeshment means you lose yourself in their feelings. Stoicism helps you stay connected without becoming consumed. Setting boundaries doesn't require anger or harshness. In fact, the more calm and centered you are, the more clearly your boundaries will be understood. You don't need to raise your voice. You just need to know where you stand and be consistent with it. If someone is upset and speaking in a way that crosses the line, you can gently but firmly say, "I want to be here for you, but I won't continue this conversation if it stays in this tone." That's not shutting them down. It's protecting both of you from getting dragged into a space where nothing good will come from it. The Stoics reminded us again and again, you can't control others. You can only control your response. And sometimes the most powerful response is to stay calm, stay kind, and still say no when something doesn't feel right. That's not rejection. That's self-respect. And when done with patience and clarity, it often invites others to grow and reflect too. Because boundaries, when set with compassion, don't create distance, they create trust. They let people know where the solid ground is. And in a world full of emotional confusion, that kind of stability is a rare and powerful thing. Once you begin to understand the nature of boundaries and how to hold them with steady hands, you start to notice another pattern. Something many men find confusing or frustrating at first. It's the way women sometimes test men. Now, this word might sound negative, like manipulation or playing games, but that's not what it truly is. These tests aren't usually planned or conscious. They're instinctual. It's a way to check for something deeper: strength, presence, and emotional stability. Not in the sense of dominance, but in the sense of trust. Are you someone who stands firm, or do you crumble under pressure? These moments often show up in small, subtle ways. A sudden shift in tone, a challenge, maybe a bit of sarcasm or a passive-aggressive comment. Not to hurt, but to feel out your response. Will you lose your cool? Will you get defensive, or will you stay calm and grounded? These emotional moments are like waves crashing against a rock. The rock doesn't argue with the wave. It just stays where it is. That's what Stoic strength looks like. Not reacting out of ego or emotion, but responding with clarity and calm. Women aren't looking for perfection. They're looking for consistency. For someone who doesn't fold at the first sign of discomfort. And this is where Stoicism shines. It teaches us not to take things personally, not to be dragged into every emotional current, but to observe, understand, and respond with intention. Marcus Aurelius never said to avoid people who challenge you. He said to prepare for them, to meet them with reason instead of reaction. Imagine this. Your partner throws a passive comment your way, something like, "Must be nice to never worry about anyone but yourself." Old habits might pull you into defensiveness or an argument, but the Stoic in you pauses. You sense the emotion behind the words. Instead of snapping back, you calmly ask, "That sounds like something's bothering you. Want to talk about it?" That's not weakness. That's power with humility. You're not avoiding the conflict, you're rising above the drama. Testing isn't about trying to break you. It's about feeling safe in your presence. When you can stand firm, not with force but with quiet confidence, you show that you're not easily shaken. And in that steadiness, real connection can begin. When you understand that women's emotional expressions and tests are often seeking reassurance rather than confrontation, the next natural step is learning how to show up with a presence that brings steadiness instead of more chaos. This is where masculine stoicism plays a quiet but powerful role in relationships. Masculine energy, in its truest form, isn't about control or dominance. It's about direction, containment, and emotional steadiness. It's the kind of energy that doesn't get swept away by every wave, but instead becomes the anchor others can rely on. Stoicism fits this perfectly. It teaches self-control, clarity of mind, and a sense of inner order that doesn't depend on external moods or opinions. When practiced daily, these principles become the foundation of what many people naturally respond to as masculine strength. Not because it's loud or forceful, but because it doesn't move unless it chooses. When a woman is overwhelmed, upset, or emotional, she isn't always looking for solutions. Sometimes she's looking for safety, and a stoic man who has learned to hold space without judgment can provide that. There's a big difference between toxic masculinity and stoic masculinity. Toxic masculinity shuts down, explodes, or avoids. It gets uncomfortable with emotion and pushes it away or turns it into anger. But stoic masculinity doesn't run. It stays present. It listens with patience. It doesn't confuse sensitivity for weakness, nor does it let emotions dictate its choices. It simply sees things as they are without panic, without trying to fix or flee. You don't need grand gestures to show this kind of strength. It's in small, repeated actions. Waking up early and keeping your word. Listening fully before responding. Not raising your voice when things get heated. Taking responsibility without complaining. Choosing to walk away from drama. Not out of fear, but because peace is more valuable than being right. In relationships, this kind of presence can be a game changer. It builds trust, because it shows you're not just reactive, you're reliable. When a woman knows she can bring her full self without fearing your explosion or withdrawal, she relaxes. She doesn't need to test as much. The storm calms because she knows the shore is solid. That's what stoic masculinity looks like. Not coldness, but calm strength. Not distance, but grounded direction. When you really look at everything we've talked about, the truth becomes simple. You don't need to fully understand women to have peace in your relationships. What you need is a better understanding of nature, how people are wired, how emotions move, and most importantly, a deeper understanding of yourself. Stoicism doesn't give you control over others, but it gives you control over how you meet them. And when it comes to women's emotions, that understanding leads to harmony, not confusion. Emotions aren't threats to your authority or peace. They're invitations, chances to stay present, to stay calm, and to show strength in a way that doesn't require shouting or fixing. They ask, without words, can you stay grounded even when things get loud? That's where the stoic man shines, not in overpowering, but in standing still when it counts. Real power is in clarity, control, and compassion. It's choosing peace over pride. And when you live this way, you don't just bring calm to her. You become calm yourself. Marcus Aurelius said it best. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. Practice that every day. Not to change her, but to master yourself.